What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tack Box Podcast. We are back and we are live this week, fresh off the Japanese Chin National in Greensboro, North Carolina. I am here with my good old buddy and co-host Dale Martinson. How are you doing today, Dale?
Man, Tyson, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I think we're both on this Tuesday, finally recovering a little bit from last week. Dale was a little bit sick last week. I had a lot of late nights and long travel days. So I think I'm feeling a little bit more human today. How about you?
Yeah, well, we both took off traveling as soon as we left out from the National. You caught like a red eye and then left to go to a dog show, the crazy man you are, to go off and be winning. And I left that show there and took a couple of flights and rented a car and ended up at a French Bulldog specialty over in Atlanta area. So there you go. Yeah, but we made it back home and we've recovered.
Yeah, recovering. That's the big thing. So, and we can talk, throughout this episode, we'll probably throw in things that happened in North Carolina and Greensboro at the National. And because today's episode, what we really want to dig into and get out there for everybody is the topic of judging the Japanese chin. And during the National, the specialty, Dale over here had the opportunity to judge the chins, and as being a longtime chin breeder, also an AKC judge, one of the most thorough judges. We wanted to have an opportunity to sit down with Dale and talk to him about what he's looking at. We want to look at judging the Japanese chin through Dale's eyes. So that's what this episode is going to be about today. So, Dale, I'm just going to hand it over to you and let you kind of take away. And I'm probably going to jump in and interrupt you with any questions that I think people might have. But what are you looking for when you're walking into a ring to judge Japanese chin?
Well, every breed has their hallmarks, and the hallmarks of a breed are what make that breed special and different from another breed. And so those are the breed defining qualities that need to be present. And so like with chin, we have our set of hallmarks where we have our head, our markings, our symmetry, the coat, the tail, the shape, their carriage, their bratty little temperaments, all of those things part of the breed. And once when you're reading your AKC standard, they'll have that general characteristics, and those are kind of some of the important things about any breed that kind of give you that overall first impression as to what you're looking for. And there's like a little bit of an attitude and everything you're looking for in that dog. So you're kind of window shopping when you're judging your window shopping, and you first to go and say, no, does that catch your eye? Is that has that got the shape, the make that you like? And of course, you look further. Once you start to dig deeper.
So, is there things that so they first come in the ring, the stewards calling numbers? Are you watching dogs as they walk in the ring? Are you already judging in your mind as they're walking in the ring? Or are you more, I'm waiting
And
for everybody to get in and stacked?
first impressions are important. So I mean, you can change your mind, but first impressions are important. So, like for me, like when I'm showing a chin, or it really pretty much almost all, most of the smaller toy breeds, the single digit in weight toy breeds, I like to carry them in and set them down inside the ring. I don't want anything happening, any kind of little kerfuffle ringside or dogs getting too close or whatever. I want to bring in and set my dog down and then get into my position, because I want to be in the zone with my dog. So when that judge looks down, that first impression that they see, that's what we're selling. And that's what I'm looking for. Is I want that arrogant little attitude. I want the shape. You know, if it gets tied up with other dog's scrambling in the ring and comes in and it's either got its tail down. That's not a great winning first impression, you know. But those are things that you really, you know. So I carry them in, set them down, let them walk into space. Now, when I judge, I do call the dogs in catalog order because AKC wants us to mark the dogs off because absentees are important. We have to know that kind of thing. But then I move the dogs around one at a time. I want to give, whether you are first or fifth, everyone has the same first opportunity. I don't want one dog chasing another dog. I don't want one dog turning around. I want exhibitors getting too close to one another. This is your moment. You know, I mean, you can't blame it on anybody else if your dog didn't show well going around the first time because you did it by yourself. And I like that. I make everyone go do their first individual. And that's when I'm looking for that, you know, total package. And we also have to watch for lameness because if there's a dog that's not using his feet right, that's limping or favoring a foot, we have to excuse them. So that first, yeah, I look at all the dogs one at a time, and that giving those dogs the chance to go around one at a time, it gives the first dog ample opportunity to get itself set on the table. Because I know as an exhibitor, I hate it when the judge is at the table going, and I barely get my dog on there, and we're like getting things together here, and I got the lead stuck in my collar, and trying to get my dog set, and he's looking back at me, and they're wanting to go over him. Like, take a second, get yourself put together there, and that gives that first dog who's been going around a chance to get their stuff in the ball, and then you can mark everybody off and then start going. You know, do I glance back at dogs in the ring? Yeah, I like to see how they just like do. I'm not looking to look at them for faults, but I like to see temperament. I like to see the dogs interacting. I like to see temperament's a biggie for me. I like my dogs have temperament. I like temperament. I like to see them, even if they're being bad. Temperament is temperament. And so, that's one of the things I do when I bring when you show, how do you like that? Have you been in the ring a few times? You've seen done different ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm gonna throw a reference out to the national, and there was a general. So far for me, in the limited amount of shows I've been to, pretty much the judges kind of did everything the same. I've never shown to you, so um, every judge that I've shown to has pretty much done it exactly the same. You come in, everybody gets in order, and they're the professionals are on their knees trying to get their dogs to look all pretty, while the judge is still getting everybody in there, and then the judge kind of comes over and they'll either go down and like they'll walk down the line real quick, or they pretty much just go over. All right, we're gonna go all the way around. First one on the table. So that's just kind of what I thought was normal. And then in North Carolina, we had the judge that was doing everything completely weird, like straight down and backs on the side, not even looking at people when they come in there. Is like as they were entering the ring, it's like take your dog around, put it on the table, and not even really watching. As like the first impression he wanted to see with the dogs was on the table. So kind of completely different, and then do like a straight down and back, and then he would do two people down and back at the same time. So he was looking at things differently and in a lot of different ways. But how you just explained it makes like so much sense to me, because I think as a newer exhibitor, your nerves, first of all, are sky high when you first get in the ring. It's just like you're nervous. Your dog can feel that. Your dog's probably a little bit nervous. They can feel it through the lead. So being able to take your dog around, and if you're not first in line, just have a second of like, okay, the judge is not on me right now. The judge is watching the dog going around. Like, just breathe, get ready to go. If you are first, hey, you get to go around and then take your moment to breathe, get your dog on the table. And like you said, it's nice. It's nice to have time to stack. I've had some, and that time's probably different for everybody and for every dog. Cause I've had some judges that's like, you're they watch them go around so fast, and then they turn around, and it's like they just start walking towards the table. It's like, "I'm not even stacked yet, like, give me a second, like, you just gave me 0 seconds. Let me get my dog, like, my dog will stack, just give me a second." Because, yeah, you're fiddling around, you got the lead stuck, or your dog was a little squirmy, and it never fails, like, somehow I fumble the lead when I'm putting my dog on the table, and it gets wrapped around my hand, or it drops and it gets tangled in the dog's front foot, or it gets stuck on my I put it around my neck, and I pick up the dog, and then you go to put it on the table, and you're like, "Crap, I didn't leave enough lead loose, so my dog's, like, too tight to my body," and as you're trying to pull it and, so that never fails. So that is nice. And then there's the aspect of there's too much time. It's like, I got my dog stacked and pretty, and he's standing there for 20 seconds, and you're just sitting there thinking, like, "Judge, turn around. Come on, look at my dog. He's so pretty." And then the judge turns around and your dog moves. Um, so there's that aspect of it. And so, I think that just kind of goes back to the importance of really being to your ring early. We've talked about this when we had our beginning dog show episode, is like being to the ring early, and looking at your judge and how they run the ring, because they all do it a little bit different. And
But
so
literally,
this weekend,
yeah,
yeah, go
that
ahead.
you were talking about was an FCI judge from out of the country that was having them go down and back and then or straight to the table and so other registries, other countries, they have a different protocol. And the American Kennel Club, they want their judges to follow their every dog is to be evaluated in the same manner. Everybody's going to get an around, everyone's going to get a pattern, everyone's going to get an examination. It's all got to be, it has to be, I mean, because, I mean, you sure you could just walk into the ring and go, "Oh, I like that one. All right, the rest of you just out." It's like, no, no, no. Everybody, you've got to go through, you've got to check for DQs, you've got to check for, all that stuff. It's like, so if I have a single entry dog, like a one in there, I will call them in and I'll send them around and I'll watch, make sure they're moving without limping or anything. And while they're setting them over there, I go back to my book and as you watched me do a few times, when they're and check the number off. I'm like, okay, yep, it's good. That one was here. We're counting it. And that gives it. For me, I do not ever look at dogs stacked on the floor. I don't do it. I don't think all of the exhibitors are capable of stacking their dogs on the floor. I think that some people can kind of stack them on the floor. Some people can get down there and stack them. That's always been kind of thing I've always been proud of. I can get down there and stack my dogs. But I've noticed, and I guess I really kind of came to mind uh, with Jane when because she's a very good handler. And I noticed, like, oh, she wasn't stacking and she's teaching everything to free stack. And I said, why? And she's like, well, this was prior to her hip replacement. I can't get down. She said, so I have to show the dog. I want my dog to walk into the stack where I can just bait it and free stack because I can't get down. And I thought to myself, there's a lot of exhibitors that are probably limited as to what they can do as far as floor presentation. So if it is a table breed, I do all of my stacking evaluation on the table because I feel everybody should be able to stack them on the table. That's fair game. No matter what your physical capabilities are, you should be able to stack your dog. Everyone's going to do it on the table. So, the people with great knees that can dive to the floor and power stack them and throw them together, that's great. Happy for you. It doesn't really move the dog up or down in my book. I don't care. So when I see him on the floor, I want to see him walking around naturally. I want to see him walk into a natural stack. I want to see him moving. I want to see him baiting. I want to show him temperament, expression. Stacking is for the table for me. That's how I do it. Everybody's different on that, but we have exhibitors that we have exhibitors that are everywhere from very young to very old, and some are with disabilities. We've got to make that available for all of them to show, and because this is an inclusive sport, and this should be about. It's not a showmanship class. It's a dog to the standard. And so if they can, if they can get the dog on the table, if they can move the dog well enough, then you should be able to judge that. So in my opinion.
Yeah. And as a newer exhibitor, you hear every different thing in the book. I've heard don't ever carry your dog in the ring. And you I think you were the first person to tell me when you have a toy breed, carry them into the ring. It gives you an opportunity, especially when you have a head breed. It gives an opportunity to kind of try to flash their head to the judge as you're walking in, and you don't have to worry about them getting in a scuffle or anything like that. And then, a lot of people say, "Don't carry your dog in the ring. They're being judged the second they enter the ring, so make sure you're always walking them in and they're all pretty and everything like that." I've done it both ways. I feel more comfortable carrying my dog in the ring, setting them down, letting the judge see my number, do the things, make sure let the steward. They usually look at your number when you're walking in anyway, so you might as well just carry the dog in, flash the dog pretty at them, let them be like, "Oh, that's a cute dog," and see some expression, and then put your dog down and go get in line. Same thing with stacking. I've heard when I was learning is like, well, everybody's getting on their knees and stacking their dog. Am I supposed to do that? So I figure, well, I'm gonna start getting on my knees and stacking my dog. And then it's like you got somebody that says like, don't ever get on the ground with your dog. And it's like, okay. So I ask you, I'm like, well, what's the mindset with getting on the ground with the dog? And you're just like, you can do it whatever way you're most comfortable with, whatever your dog and you work the best with. That's what's important.
Yeah, whoever your team works, and some breeds like a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, you never get on the ground and stack it. Never, 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 never. That's written in the it's nope. But a chin can either be hand stacked or free baited. Papillon, they're always free baited. I mean, in some breeds like Chihuahuas, either or, they could be free baited or they could be hand stacked. It doesn't matter. Whatever your relationship and how it works for that dog and that handler that makes the best presentation, then do it because it's you've got 2.5 minutes to sell your look and what your team has brought there. So I'd say that's your time, and just have to look and see what you're doing. And the other thing is part of being a good exhibitor is we know our areas that need improvement. And so if your dog has a little bit of a bad front, well, then maybe don't just let him stand in front of the judge like that. Maybe either turn him away or make sure the front legs are facing the right direction, that kind of thing. Be aware of your dog's imperfections or areas of not their strongest suit. And then, we can show that. But so, like for me, the chin, we're going to call him in. I'm going to walk down take a look at him, have him go around one at a time and I want to see them go. I want to see the side profile. I want to see the shape. I like to see, because it's a silkier coat, I like to see the hair move. If the hair doesn't move, well, then that's not a very silky coat. That's going to be more of a woolly, soft coat. I want to see movement in the hair. I want to see the outline. I want to see how their foot timing is. And I want to see how they go, how their moving shape, because their moving shape is their truest shape. How they walk, that's how they're made. So if they have a good front reach where they're covering ground and effortless and smooth, then that's you can kind of tell a lot how that dog's built by watching it walk. And if they, all of that. So all of that moving shape is very, because we have a great illustrated standard for the chin, and we have a pretty picture of the chin moving and the triangle where the extension from the front and the rear. You should see that outline and that short coupled look in between. It's a very, very cool picture. And so that's the first thing that's my first thing is when they're going around. And I do you can't help it, but you're just gonna see something that catches your eye and you go, wow, yeah, I like that. And then you go onto the table, and I mean you're shopping there, but you're buying on the table. Once you get on there, that's when you can really start to, that's where you can see everything. You can get on there and really kind of tell. You can see, is the head big? Is the rib cage large? Is the loin short? What's the condition of the dog? I mean, condition is important. That's one part that the exhibitors, I mean, if you bring your dog in good and proper weight, that's a plus. You know, if your dog's face is clean of eye stains, that's a plus. You know, this is our breed's a beauty and symmetry, and it should look, there should, I'm not saying, it's not a grooming contest. And I don't really especially care to see chin that are overly trimmed and sculpted and like that. I like to see them natural, but I like to see them in good condition and clean. You know, clean is free. Everybody has the capability of doing clean. Some people are better groomers than others. That's fine. It's not a grooming competition. But cleanliness is an achievable goal for all dogs, exhibitors, everything. Everybody can have a bath. And that's one of those things you want to get on there and you can touch and you can feel. But like with the chin, you'll probably notice in the like in the clips, you have to be respectful with your touching. You don't want to grab a hold of them, and you're not going to like manhandle them and treat them like they're on the conveyor belt at Walmart. You've got to show them some respect. You've got to acknowledge their person. I always try to talk to the exhibitors, because once they're calm, because like you said, you may be a little amped up, you know, going, oh my God, I mean, so if you say, hey, how are you doing? Jeff, it's raining outside, that kind, everyone kind of like, and then, talk to your dog a little bit and say, how are you, buddy? And just lightly, because then they realize, hey, it's not stranger danger. You know, this is okay. And then I'll go ahead and I'll feel the size of the skull, feel how the ribs are tied in, or run hand on the back to make sure the top line feels good. Just trace the leg a little bit to kind of, I slip the hand between the back legs on the males, just to check that we have all the necessary equipment. Uh, you know, you've got to go under the hair a little bit, but do it with a light touch. Be respectful. You don't have to. And a lot of times what I do, I like to just take my hand and I'll chuck them under the chest a little bit, just kind of let them know that this is all good. Don't be uptight. And because if they're happy on the table, they're going to give you their, like, friend of chin kind of expression, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, you have to think, and I think this is what's an extremely important to know for judges to know is the actual personality of the chin. They're a more reserved dog. You have to earn their trust and their respect. So it's one of those scenarios where it's like, hey, we only got 2.5 minutes to judge this dog, so I got to make friends with this dog quick, so it lets me examine them. Like, so where you said, like, coming up, talking to the handler, the exhibitor, it helps that dog feel comfort. Because I imagine, I'm not a judge. I imagine when a judge walks up to the dog and the dog clamps up and kind of like gets back and is a little bit skittish, a little bit harder to examine than a dog that's going to stand there and be a little waggy and happy to see you. A little harder to examine when they lock up. I don't think you can get nearly as good of a feel for the dog and what they have if they're kind of clammed up. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. But you watch like all of the little dogs at the national. None of them, they all behave good on the table, and after the table, they all had their tails up. That's that's when you know you did it right. If they come off the table and their tails are still up, you did a good exam. If you come off the table and their dog that did have its tail up no longer has its tail up, that was not a winning experience for that dog. You just got a 1-star review from the chin. And if you'll know, because you videoed the entire thing. They all came off the table good. Now, some of them were more welcoming than others, but everybody did fine. And when you see a dog that's a little bit more tense, you just be a little lighter with your examination. Because once you're there, you're seeing. if I see, I don't need to grab the hood. I can see it. It's there. It's not like it's gonna change. And you want to make sure to give that dog a good experience, because if somebody grabs them and hand mishandles them a little bit, then they can decide that, okay, I hate this, I hate you, and I hate every part of this. And it says right in our standard where they can be, a little reserved with strangers. Well, nothing, you're not going to find a stranger bunch of people then at a dog show. That's about as strange as you're going to get, unless there's a Star Trek convention going on. I mean, they're within their rights to be a little bit like, I'm not sure about you, you know, so you got to sell it to them. And when they seem a little bit taken back from it, give them a minute. And that's kind of like the handler's job too, because they know this is going on. Because and sometimes the handlers are the worst part of the team, because they're nervous, making the dog nervous, and that doesn't ever really go well.
Is it safe to say that a lot of times the decision is made after the dog's been on the table who's already won, and down and back is kind of just confirming thoughts? Or have you maybe not made a decision at that point yet?
Well, yeah, okay, so that's a good thing. That's a good question. So it's kind of like you're buying a house. So you just did your drive by and thought, oh, it has curb appeal. I'm going to schedule a showing with the agent. So now we're on the table. We've had the showing. We like the floor plan. It's got enough bedrooms. We're going to do the inspection. So so when they walk down and back, I mean, you've probably got a mind as to where you are, but this is your inspection. Are the legs like this? Are they like this? Are they where they should be? I mean, that's where you're going to have to find if everything goes where you're supposed to, and then if there's like, well, there's just there's a little water leak, it's turning out one leg a little bit. It's like you go to the degree of the deviation, to the degree of the fault. And so, but for me, I love especially like the coming back at them, and I like their little, because you notice I put the little piece of tape on the floor because I didn't want them to walk them all the way back into the table. Sometimes chin don't like to walk into the corners. So having them stop a little bit out, that everybody's made it up to the tape. No one stopped, because sometimes they'll stop and they'll like go, I'm not walking into that corner. Are you crazy? And I like to walk around them and see how the legs have are landed on their own on a natural stack, and then have them go on around by themselves to the end of the line. So that's kind of the home inspection stage right there, where you are that's where you that's where you have evaluated that dog to the standard. That dog to the standard. And then this is where the judging starts. Is it if you'll remember, you see when we put a couple of the dogs back on the table together? Have you seen that done before?
Yep, I've seen that done before, and I see a lot of times. I feel like I can always tell a judge that knows chin pretty well, because generally, if they are familiar with the standard, they'll have you pick them up so they can examine the head down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because that is our hallmark, our biggest hallmark is the head, the eyes, the expression, the skull, the ear set, all of the facial patterning, the breadth of jaw, all of those things. That's your final thing. So when you're looking at these, go, oh, I like all of these are nice. These are all good movers. They're all in nice condition. They're all well marked. These are, so now I'm going to go ahead and so if you want to actually touch them, they have to go onto the table. If you want to just look at them, then you can hold them in their arms. And so the looking is when I'm looking for expression, and just like how they animate and stuff like that, because they'll do that cute when their owners are holding them. But if I want to touch them, they have to go back onto the table where I can see which one is a little shorter, which one has got a little fuller chest, which one has got a little bit better legs, that kind of thing. Because sometimes when you see them right together, you go, oh, because you get lighting, you get 12 feet away. Things can be a little different when you're right there and you can see it and you can touch it. It's right there. It's an open book test. That's what judging is it's an open book test. You just, you just have to know the questions and it's pretty easy.
Well, and the thing to remember about all this, you have 2.5 minutes. So there's times where people are like, the judge this or the judge this, and it's like you got to remember, a judge has 2.5 minutes to evaluate your dog compared to the standards, and then all the other dogs in the ring too. And make a decision in that short amount of time.
Well, and that also includes the time it took you to go back out and get your dog. And when you forgot your armband and the lead came off, and then the dog had to stop and have a pee break. That all comes out of the 2.5 minutes. And that includes the marking the book, giving out the awards, and having everybody out. It's an inclusive 2.5 minutes, the whole experience. So that's sometimes when people are like, "Oh, I'm coming." It's like, no, do not have your first impression being you're burning up my 2.5 minutes with you don't have your dogs ready. You don't have somebody holding the dog ringside to take it back in. Because it's, again, for the exhibitors, it's also an open book test. You know the classes, you know who's going in next, have them ready. Have your pit crew, have them ready. All hands on deck. So when you walk out, they can hand you that dog, you got the lead, you're going right back in. Have that time that you have your time be your dog is ready. And that goes a long ways because your dog's in a good headspace, you're in a good headspace, and you're going to give a positive impression. If they have to call you 3-4 times, you trolleyed off to wherever, and they have to find a lead. Yeah, that doesn't help. That just doesn't
Well,
help.
yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like you're judging the dog, but the exhibitor can completely destroy everything very easily. Don't be late. Don't be holding everything up. Don't piss the judge off by doing something stupid. Where it's like, they're still gonna judge your dog, but if the judge is consistently waiting on you, it's an annoyance, and at that point, we're human beings. Everybody's human beings. There's subliminal things that happen in the brain of like, oh, this person is just messing everything up, taking up all the time, blah, 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 blah.
It's disrespectful.
Yeah,
I mean,
there you go. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
everybody is incapable of having, it's like we have to show a lot of grace. It's like, so, some people it's going to take a little moment, and that's okay. You know what I mean? If you something sure, they're animals. There's not a hard time. Sometimes it takes a moment. Fine, collect yourself. And and if like there's absentees and someone gets called in before they're ready, and it's like, calm down. It's all good. Because the absentees, we gain time then. If it's an absentee, we pick up time. So that gives us more time to do other things. Like if we want to move two dogs together, or you, in a lot of times when you move them together, you might want to put one dog in front to see how this dog looks leading, how this dog looks following, and then switch it and have them do that. And so you can kind of get a feel for how they look moving, the dogs that you're interested in, the ones that's like it's between these two, you're working it out, and that's kind of huge.
Now, so let's just say you're in the breed ring. You have some class dogs that are maybe 8 months old. You got some specials in there that are 3 years old. Obviously, this episode is about judging the Japanese chin. So let's just keep it chin related on this. There is a huge difference between an 8-month-old dog and a 2-year-old dog in Japanese chin. The maturity level of the coat, the structure. So how do you judge? You got a really nice 8-month-old and you got a really nice 2-year-old. what's going through the mindset of a judge when you're talking that big of age difference?
Okay. Now, and that's a very fair question. So, because it's the one standard, of course, the standard describes the mature dog in its final glory. I mean, that should be full bloom. It should be all of the color right there. And so, but you are expected to know enough about the breed that is this older dog, which has an advantage. The older dog has the advantage because it should have maybe more condition, it should have more training, it should have all of the positive aspects of maturity. And so is this dog's maturity, is this more quality than this young animal's potential? And that's where you balance it out and you go, well, are the how are those markings? How is the symmetry? How is this? I mean, yes, if I see an adult female and her coat is glorious and I know that's like, oh wow, that's a really good coat for a bitch. You know, that is more value than a nice puppy coat, but who knows what it's going to be, 8 months from now because you're only judging them on the day. You don't judge what they could be or what they once were. It's just today. Because that's like the other day I saw a dog that I had judged a while back, about 2 years ago, and it was a dog I liked a lot. It was a beautiful dog, but I saw him, and his coat looked rough. I mean, he had they'd been down the trail and back again. It looked, and it's like it's not it's like you can't you can't rest on your laurels of the past. You're only as good as the game you brought on the day. So if your coach's not good today, well, you might not win. You know, and if it's got, that's where keeping them in condition. That's why the shows. That's an element of fairness to their, who's ready to win today. You know, and on the moment. But you have to, when you look at those the qualities of those young dogs, you have to kind of weigh it out. Say, is this a better younger animal than this is a mature adult animal? Is it a better class dog than it is a champion in there? You just have to pick pick and choose and do it from the points, the hallmarks of the standard.
So I mean, I feel like this is pretty obvious, but it might not be. And to new people, old people alike, judges are human beings that have different opinions, right? Like, it's you could go in there and be like, "Ooh, I really, really like this chin," and the next judge could come in and, "Oh, I like this chin better because of what sticks out in their eye." When you read a standard and it says big round eyes, well, there is a line where a big round eye becomes too big of a round eye, but you could see a dog and be like, "Oh, those are really gorgeous big round eyes. Those are perfect." And the next judge could look at the same dog and think, "Yeah, no, those are a little bit big for my liking. I don't like those as much, so I'm gonna pick a different dog." There's a lot of what the standard says, but how it's interpreted by the person looking at the animal. And I think that's kind of the glory of what we do. If you can win more than one time with the same animal, it's like, okay, I might have a quality animal here because more than one person has been picking this animal uh, as a winner. It's not just this one off thing. Is that kind of said accurately? I feel like it's kind of like a beauty pageant in some sort of way. We think about dog showing so much different, but like think about Miss America. An 8-year-old's not winning Miss America. This young girl that hasn't come to maturity yet isn't generally, if you were judging potential, well, how do you judge potential? How do you judge what an eighth grader is going to look like when they're 25? You can't judge what a 6-month-old puppy necessarily is going to look like when they're 2 years old. What's their coat going to look like, right?
Right. So that's where the older animals have an advantage because they should have the bloom of maturity. But so back to the opinions. We all have opinions, and our opinions are based on our experiences. So if my experience has been is with a certain trait or attribute, is that maybe, and this is where breeder judges have had deep experiences in that breed. Like, I've seen thousands of chin puppies, you know, and so it's like, that's maybe it's got a little this or a little that I would change, but it's probably going to mature out of that. I know that because I've seen lots of them grow up, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, we come and we'll go, oh, well, yeah, I've seen lots of them. That doesn't get better. That just gets worse, you know. And, those that breed knowledge, and that kind of is why we're desirable judges for specialties, because we do a lot of young dogs, a lot of old dogs. Um, I had a beautiful French bulldog at the specialty. She was 13 years old, and I thought she was fabulous for 13 years of age. I mean, she really stayed to her coat and skin. I was like, wow, Grandma, you look good. And but those opinions are based on your knowledge and your perception of the breed and how much you know about it. Like, how important is that? Because if you come from another breed, a large breed, whenever I watch large breed people, uh, not all, but some, go to the toy dogs and they maybe handle them a little too much. Maybe they put more emphasis on running really fast than maybe running the right speed for the breed. Keeping that shape while they're moving is more important than extreme, covering a lot of ground, that type of thing. Those things that makes you more of an expert in that area. And I think that's where people go, oh, well, if you're a toy person, they will like, I'm going to show my dogs to the toy person because the toy person, they're going to understand. They're going to have the right touch with my dogs. They're going to appreciate what they're looking for. And I think that's kind of like when you want to have a broad appeal. You want to have people that maybe, you know, don't raise toy dogs. So if they like your dog because it's showy or it's sound or that type of thing, that's a good thing to have. Back in the day, we used to say we showed to breeders to keep our dogs pretty, and we showed to all rounders to keep our dogs sound. That was the goal. That those kind of the melding of those opinions. But yeah, I think that when you talk about people who are breeders, we look for potential. We look for qualities that are super hard to get. You know, we look at and we look at things like, oh, I know how hard it is to get that coat. I know how hard it is to get that. It's like, I was so happy with the chin entry because they were all so pretty marked. Everything was perfectly marked. They were so symmetrical. There, there was no ticking. There was no sootiness. There was no smut to their color. That was good. That's very good. And I felt like my 4 to 6 puppy through my best of breed winners, those were all dogs that would be competitive in a group because they were excellent examples of the breed at their age and maturity that they were at. And that's why eventually I awarded the adult champion best of breed, because he was in full bloom. He had the hair, he was matured out. I mean, there, and maybe the non-champions will be nicer in 2 years, maybe. Well, maybe not, but today he was in full bloom. Yeah, that's how that goes.
I mean, you got to pick on what you see in front of you today, not what could be in 2 years, because you don't know. So it's what's in front of you today. What do I have? And that's where you had talked about earlier. That's where cleanliness and grooming can play a factor, because what is in front of me today. Now I have some weird one-off questions that people are going to ask about judging, and so get your feedback on it. So you mentioned earlier uh, on the ground stacking versus free stacking.
Yes.
My feeling, I prefer free stacking, and I prefer free stacking for a couple different reasons. I think it lets the judge see the dog better without me blocking any hindrance or blending into the dog. You know, if I'm wearing black pants, you don't have to worry about the coat blending in with my pants or anything like that, and you actually get to see the full outline of the dog. And we've come to the conclusion, Chin, you can get on the ground, you can stack them, you can free stack them, whatever works best for the dog. You had mentioned, I think you said Papillons, you don't ever get on the ground. Is that in the standard for Papillons? Like that
Now,
they have to free stack, or what's the?
not in the standard as far as like you can get down and sack them if you want to. People just don't. Very rarely do they. They want to see them. They'll get down and they'll bait them. Part of the that on the ground depends what your dog's faults are. Depends what your dog's faults are. So a good handler, if I have a dog and it's a little bit long, then I'm going to probably try to angle it a little bit, make it look a little shorter. You know, if I have a dog that has a really pretty face, I might want to be baiting that dog to have that dog looking out at that judge and like sees how good that face is and how good the ears are. You know, if I have a dog that is maybe doesn't stand so great in the front, well, I'm gonna be down on the ground. If I can't get him to stand on his own with a good front, I'll get down. I'm not gonna let him stand there and look not well put together. So I mean, it depends as to your dog. It depends as to your degree of commitment to your communication with your animal. But like with toy dogs and with young dogs, I think there's a good teamwork with handler and dog. Is there's like a bubble around them, and where you are making sure it's kind of like a parent when you take your kids to the fair, you're going to make sure they have a good experience. All right, we're going to go ahead, we're going to buy ice cream, but we're going to sit on the bench first, and we're going to buy ice cream because we're going to eat it on the ice, because if we go running through the midway with the ice cream, we're going to drop it. It's going to fall. It's going to be on the ground. We're going to have a drama. So it's like, it's part of like, I carry him in because I don't want him to get spooked going through the gate by the other dogs, and I don't want a possible incident. I want them to have, I keep my dogs, make sure that they're having a good experience. I want to make sure that I don't want another dog get too close to them. I don't want a bitch in heat to set my male off. I don't want them to decide that they don't like somebody. It's like, this is, you and me, we're here, we're doing this together. And that kind of teamwork, I think, is a positive sell. You can get the best picture for that dog. And people who are good handlers and good with their breed, they know the qualities of their breed, they know the qualities of the dog they're showing, and they make it look fun and like they're doing nothing. It's like I'm just sitting here having this great time with my dog, and and everyone looks like, wow, what a great dog there is. They're having so much. I mean, it's not. I don't like to see handling where they're drilling their legs into the ground and staring like like those where the kids are showing the goats and they all stare at them like that. Yeah, no, that does not look fun. That does not look appealing. You know, you should be having a good time with the dog and all of the stuff. The charm of the breed is what you're selling to the judge, and I think that is far more appealing. Other than to try to like you're intimidating them, like you're going to stare them down. Oh my, are you seeing how good this is? Yeah, I saw it, and that kind of thing. I think it makes for more of an appealing partnership.
So I mean, it kind of goes back to practice, knowing your animal, and I'm I mean, as far as dog showing goes, is like I'm still wet behind the ears. We can say that. It's new, and I'm learning. You know, we practice a lot, but we're also showing 5 dogs. They're all different. I have a dog that will free stack perfect on his own uh, every time, but he will always face you. He wants to be right in front of you, looking at you. That's great. I don't have to get on the ground with him. The bad part about it is I'm never gonna get him looking at the judge or turn towards the judge because he's gonna go wherever I am. So if I'm in front of him and he's stacking perfect in front of me, the only way the judge is ever gonna see that dog is when it's a side profile. He's never gonna get a great head on visual of that dog because the dog's gonna move everywhere I move. that's a thing that I know about that dog that I have to keep working on as a handler of getting that dog to stack without having to without me having to be right in front of him. Thankfully, I can get out to the end of the lead with that dog, so there's opportunity for the judge to, get in and still see the dog. I also have another dog, never be able to get on the ground with her. She's so spazzy. If I'm in within 6 inches of her, she wants to be in my lap and jumping all over me and having a good old time because that's what we do. We have a good old time. If I want her to stack, yeah, she's got a 5-second window that she's gonna stack really nice, and then she's gonna be spazzed out. So really practice and getting to know your dog and again paying attention to how the judge judges so you know when to put your dog in the best situation to be presentable for the judge and when how the judge's routine goes. I think that's super beneficial to give the best input of your dog. But uh, as far as walking, going around, whether it's group or all together, one by itself, down and back, the chin standard talks about the tail and the tail being tight to the back and flowing. How does it affect your opinion and the judging of a chin if the chin's walking with the tail down or doesn't always have the tail up?
Okay, fair enough question. Good, I mean, because the tail is an indicator of the temperament, and it's an indicator of the situation. And this is where you're kind of like looking around and kind of saying, you is this a bad tail set? Is this dog's set not good where it doesn't carry its tail well? Is it like got a rounded croup where it should be flat and the tail is just loose and it's just going to come and go? That could be. You're going to have to touch it and see. Is it maybe an inexperienced handler and an inexperienced dog? And if you give them a minute and they get it together, you'll have glimmers of greatness. You know, then it's like, well, then that's another thing. That's where you got to watch and see and kind of, and you also have to protect the dogs a little bit. The handler's hopefully protecting them, but that's why I don't want them to go. I don't move them a lot together per se because I don't want anybody running up on another dog and having them lose their tail or this or that. It kind of I was like give everyone their chance, and when they're moving, the tail should be up. And I mean, and if I've seen it up, I can go ahead and if it gets spooked and drops its tail, will probably won't beat it unless it was super close to another dog that wasn't, then that might be a deal breaker, you know? And in some breeds, it's a bigger deal than in others. But, like with the chin, they could drop their tail, but if they turned around, had a little bit of a moment and, uh, and got happy and confident and then picked their tail up again, it's like, okay, well, we sold them on this experience and that's okay. You know, so you kind of have to know the breed a little bit, kind of like see what's going on there with the dog. If there's a super lot, someone starts tearing down crates and someone drops a table and dog drops a tail. I'm not going to beat a better quality dog because someone's inconsiderate and they lost and they just like made scared this dog with a slam or a bang. That's not cool. So you just have to kind of be aware, kind of keep control of the. That's where the part of the thing with the judge. It has to be safe for the exhibitors. It has to be safe and fun for the dogs, and we have to keep control of the ring. And like if they're going to start making announcements off the loudspeaker and they turn it on for the first time in 8 months and it does this horrible static crackle and the dogs are all like, "Oh my God," well, give them a minute, because I mean we have to come back now from this. It's like you can't like expect animals to perform through that kind of thing. We have to be aware of what's going on in our ring and keeping control of that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, good, good way to put it there. Now, let's talk about on the table and stacking. So we've talked about this a little bit, but same situation as a dog that runs around the ring with the tail up versus a dog that maybe the tail's down. What about a dog that's on the table stacking like a statue you can walk up, do it, dog doesn't move, nothing you examine, versus a dog that when you come up to it, cowers down or gets super excited. How does that sway a judge's opinion between the two?
Well, okay, so uh, obviously, better behavior is a better position to be in, and it means that someone's been more prepared, perhaps. But young animals, it's like I don't care about excitement. My dogs don't behave worth doo doo. Uh, but if they're happy, that's all I care about. So if my dog's if a dog I'm judging, if it's happy and it's like wanting to lick me and step out of stack, yeah, I'm not going to penalize it for that. Probably like it more. Doesn't bother me at all. I feel a little bad if they're sad, if they're scared, and I feel like I kind of want to give them a good experience. If it's truly a bad temperament, or if it's just like if so sometimes if a dog has a weak table exam, like they're just like they're hesitant, they're pulling back, and they're kind of like, every time you touch them, they act like they've been hit with electricity. Then, when they go do their down and back, and I'll tell them, talk to them, tell them you're having fun, and they'll go do their down back. And sometimes I'll reach down there, and if they'll walk up to me and they're like receptive and happy, I know it's a good temperament. It just doesn't have enough table experience. And so I take that into consideration. Like, this dog doesn't have a weak personality or a personality, fault. It just doesn't have enough table experience, or it's not confident enough to get on the table. So you can't really dink it for confirmationally, on that. It's like, because I do like to see temperament's a big deal for me. I like a good temperament. I mean, I think it's an important thing for a dog to have. I think it's an important thing for a dog to be a good pet, to be a good show dog. Temperament is everything. So, like, if it can be the best dog in the whole world, if it has a garbage temperament, who wants it? It's not a win for me.
Is that the so would that be the same scenario as a dog that maybe doesn't walk? I've been beat by dogs where my dog prances on the lead perfectly, never a problem, and the dog that beats me can walk 2 foot and then is getting pulled by the handler with using a squeaky toy and can't make it all the way around the ring to where they have to pick it up and carry it to the table, and that dog still wins. So is that kind of the same scenario as like, yeah, the
Yeah,
judge maybe thought that dog was scared and
right.
wasn't having, but was conformationally sound.
Right. So if you like, it's like to the degree of the fault, right? So if the dog isn't walking, if it's walking sound and it's walking with a good temperament, but it's not walking with great training, like it's lacking in training, then yeah, I probably would put that up over a lesser quality dog I didn't like as well that walked better. I mean, but then again, if it was close, the person who did the homework, who has their dog walking, is going to get to win, just kind of like the person, if it's close, if it's like we're in the margin of error, you've got two dogs of about equal quality. Well, the one that stood on the table and walked well is uh, definitely, got the edge, for sure. And I felt like our chin entry, they all walked everybody walked good. I mean, we were on that wild carpet. They didn't care. I mean, that was impressive. They all walked really well on that. It's kind of like going, you gotta kind of wonder with those big eyes. They're looking at that and going, "Wow, that's got to be real psychedelic." But yeah, everybody did good with that.
It always impresses me when you throw them into weird situations like that, and it's like there's no way to prep for it, right? Like anybody can, well, not anybody, but most people can prep for a standard show. There's a lot of training facilities around, classes being held. They got, a ring, they got mats set up, and a stacking table, and you can go do that to prepare for the what we experienced in Greensboro. You're not preparing for that. I mean, you're talking like hotel ballroom carpet, so it's got patterns and it's fancy. You got chandeliers overhead that are sparkly and got crystals and all that. Granted, they're fake crystals. They still look like crystals and reflect light like crystals. And then you have your normal ring, but no mats, so they don't have the A lot of times you go dog show, it's a concrete or dirt floor and you got mats. They have a pathway that they're used to walking around or being on. And now you got carpet that's designed all over the place and the dogs walk good. You decorate more for specialties. So you're talking different types of lights hanging around, cherry blossoms or whatever goes with the breed, peacocks, all sorts of stuff, all the way. There's so many distractions for the dogs. And they did fantastic. They did so good at the National.
I know. It's like, I was looking at your live feed the other day. I was like, going, wow. I mean, and it's video eye candy because you've got all that color and all that, but it's super hard to get your dogs ready for that. And I even had, I even had bought some of that carpet and runners to get to walk my dogs on it. Because like one year I went and the first day they're all like, nope, not walking on that. Sorry. It's like, so I bought some. Well, then I was like, I'm all prepared because I got this whole roll of this ugly carpet and I'm walking my dogs on it, walking them and walking them. Well, nope. They put plastic on the carpet. I'm like, well, I hadn't practiced with plastic on the carpet. It's like, damn, you keep changing this up on me. Every time I think I know the rules, you add another layer. But no, it's a lot to throw on them. And the idea that they can kind of go ahead and roll with it is kind of impressive. I guess they got, and like we had one year they had the Purina Farms, which is a wonderful facility because they have that wonderful floor that has it's a polymer type thing with it's great traction. There's no mats or anything like that, no corners. It's wonderful. But we hung this. There was a black curtain that went around, and one of my best dogs saw that and thought that was the black curtain of death, and pretty much said someone opened the door and it swooshed up, and she's like, "Oh no, we are not walking into the curtain of death. That is not going to happen." I mean, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And I thought, wow, we just drove 12 hours and we're not walking to that curtain. It's just not going to happen. Oh well, and that's part of the one thing about dog shows. That's why you can judge the same set of dogs 5 times, 5 different people come up with 5 different answers because there's that living aspect of performance that can change the whole outcome. You just don't know.
And it kinda I mean, there's a factor of an animal, there's a factor of a handler, a human being, there's a factor of a human being and a judge, and there's a factor of how, the opinions, that you have a standard, but like we mentioned earlier, big round eyes. How's the judge interpreting it versus the next judge interpreting it? One day you could be told you got perfect eyes, they're great. And then the next day the judge could say, yeah, they're a little small. Or, a small amount of white in the corner. What's a small amount of white? Well, that's different to you than it is to the next judge.
Well, and so when you take like one piece, I mean, it's an important piece and it's an important thing, but you have to read the whole paragraph with it and go, yeah, they're supposed to be big around. That's good. But they're supposed to be dark and they're supposed to be lustrous. And so, what is lustrous? What is something that is lustrous that looks like a black pearl, has that shine to it that just draws you in? That's lustrous. So it's like, that's how do you describe to someone, that's lustrous, that's not lustrous, but when you see it and you go look at it and you go, wow, look at that eye, that's so perfect, and it's lustrous. This one's might be bigger, but this one is big, but it's also dark and it's lustrous and all. So I mean, it's not just the big; it's all of the other components that go with it. No one quality supersedes another unless it has all of the components that go with it. That's the trick of judging the balance, the whole package. It's not just one thing. It's kind of like being a single issue voter, which a lot of people are like, well, I want to vote for that because that's all that
Are
matters.
you about to get us canceled talking politics here?
I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that if you have a broader spectrum of all of the issues, you might come to a better overall decision. And so the more you know about all of it, the more informed your decision is. Otherwise you can just say, well, whoever has the biggest eyes is going to win. They could be light, they could be improperly set, might not they might have too much drainage, all of these things. You have to have the whole thing. And that's where it's not one piece, it's the whole puzzle that makes the picture. And without that, you get something a little incomplete. You don't get the overall best.
So would you put ticking in the same kind of categories as like, yeah, this dog's got a little bit of ticking in the coloring, but got really solid head. So zero.
No,
Okay.
because so all right. So in our standard, when we talk about symmetrical, we talk about the clean markings, free of ticking. That we're saying right there, this is an important thing. So I mean, if it's kind of like whenever someone tells me, oh, well, I went ahead and put this one up, this Japanese chin over that Japanese chin, because I know that one maybe had a better head and maybe had better color I'm like, oh, well then, okay, you've just disregarded several thousand years of breed type that people have strived for something that you've deemed more important. And I think that's when you are knowledgeable of a breed, you understand the rules of that house. And in that, it's like, all right, in party color cockers, which is another breed I have that's a markings breed, they have colors, they can have ticking. I didn't like it. My dogs didn't have much ticking. I didn't keep them that ticking. It didn't appeal to me. But when I judge them, if the best dog has ticking, it wins because it's not that important in that house. In Japanese chin, boy, impressed me. I want to see one good, so good that I'm going to put it up with ticking because it's got to be perfection there, and everything else has got to be doo doo because that's a pretty big, pretty big thing to trade off. It's kind of like the bad head, It's like so you have to understand where you are, know your audience, know your breed, know what's important to your breed. That's when we talk about breeder judge or group specialist when breeds that you have, what's important or not important. It's like when we judge French bulldogs, sometimes they're farting, sometimes they puke. The cutest puppy, and I gave her reserve. She's adorable. She kind of came up with, yeah, Frenchies do that, And if we'd given her enough time, she'd have eaten it. And it's just who they are. Don't get upset about it. It's not a problem, I mean, and people that have Frenchies, we know that we don't mind. We know they're gassy little buggers. It's that we don't take it personal, and but it's part of knowing your breed and what's an important thing in one breed is not as important in the other, and that's where those standards and how they're applied is so important.
All right. One last question that I want to get out there. In according to AKC, if you are an AKC judge that in America, you didn't come from anywhere outside of country. You
South
started in
Dakota,
America.
yeah.
Yeah, you're in South Dakota. And you're judging Japanese chin or any other breed. Do you have to test and be approved by the AKC to judge that breed? So you have to show your knowledge, is that correct? So
Correct.
you're not just like putting in an application to be I wanna oh, AKC is hiring for judges. Let me fill out an application. Oh, what experience do you have? Well, I've been around dogs for 15 years. Okay, you can judge everything. Like we can throw that out the book and that if a judge is in the ring judging our breed, they've tested on that breed and know the standard at least enough to pass a test that the AKC puts out, correct?
All right, that's a good question. So, and so judges they get sidelined a lot. They get called, we're stupid, we're crooked,
They didn't know my
we're
breed at all. They don't know what they're talking about.
we're
They're just in
adult,
there.
yeah. There's all that. I mean, and I don't even take it personal because it's like, hey, everybody wants to win. You know, don't expect them to agree with it. Just all I ask is I want to show my exhibits and my exhibitors some respect, and they can totally think I'm wackadoodle. Just respect my opinion because it comes from my experiences. Those are my experiences that I'm translating for you. But in order to get a breed or be approved for a breed, um, and there's considered to be when you apply, you can apply as a breeder judge. So I have 5 breeds that I qualified for with the American Kennel Club as a breeder judge, and then I had other breeds that I had shown as a handler that I had finished and campaign dogs. And so those dogs I had shown that I had been experienced with that breed, that I had shown them, exhibited them, and that I was, aware. But you still have to, then you have to also go ahead and you test, and then breeds after that you apply for on educational. So it'd be CEUs, um, and that you would have to get like 10 CEUs for a breed, and you might get that from attending a national, attending seminars, doing mentoring, doing sweepstakes, canine college courses, like what we were hopefully doing some filming for, all of those things. So by the time they go ahead and apply for a breed that they didn't breed or show, they've had to do the educational components. Then they have to take a an interview. You take the test, have the education, and then they're going to go in there and they're going to have one of the AKC representatives. They have to interview you. Like, do you know this breed? Do you know the disqualifications? Do you know the breed hallmarks? And then after the point where you've taken the test, you've done the CEUs, taken the test, you've passed the interview, then they approve you on provisional. We've given you a license, but we can pull it away. And so you have to judge the breed 3 times and do a satisfactory job with observations, and then they give you regular status where they're like going, okay, you're good on this. You've done this, and at that point you are a fully licensed judge on that breed, and that's each breed you do. Now, when you have judges from other countries come, they maybe can be a get status quicker there, and they are reciprocal to the United States. So that's when you can see some very different things coming from some wonderful judges, some not so wonderful judges from out of the country. And their education process might be vastly different, and their experiences might be vastly different, and they have very different priorities. And sometimes they are uh, very acknowledging of our standards and what we want. Sometimes not. Like in we're talking about chin, tricolored Japanese chin are not shown in FCI. It's a disqualification. So if I judge an FCI show, as much as I love tricolored chin, if someone shows one, I have to disqualify it. It's not allowed. But you judge in our show, and I show you a tricolored chin, you have to evaluate it fairly with open eyes and say, yeah, we can't show these at home, but you can show them here. Go for it. And that's the difference. And you have to be a very fair-minded person and have some integrity to do that because it's a thing. So yeah, it's easy to bash, and I mean, and that's like, and when people have like, especially in any breed, we sit there and we'll stare at dogs for hours and hours and watch them for 5 days in a row and pick them apart, and we'll know everything that's good and more importantly what's bad. Um, and then we expect that judge to find every minutia that we have like in 2.5 minutes along with everything else. And I go, well, didn't they see when they rounds that corner, it took an extra step? It's like, yeah, right. They maybe didn't see it. It's possible. It's like, so there we can be a little bit hard on the judges as far as like, and then there's also personal taste. Like some people like a bigger or smaller, they like a color, all of that stuff. So There's difference of taste and opinion, and there's also judges that come from other groups that probably bring different priorities that maybe that the toy people don't totally agree with, but that's okay. You showed a judge, showed to them a couple times. If you don't think that they have a good concept of your breed, they could still be a lovely person. Just don't enter into them. You know, that's the whole thing. AKC offers it puts all the judges out there in advance, so you should know. And there's lots of online stuff on there you can go read about them. Go, oh well, that person they like smaller dogs or bigger dogs or whatever thing or a certain color in your breed. Yeah, there's probably a history of it. We'll go check on Facebook, see what colors they put up before. Back in the olden days, we showed pied French bulldogs. They were very hard to finish, and we would see one. We would like read through the magazine, say, "Oh, they put one up. They put one up. They put one." So it's like we kept a list of the judges that we could show the weird colored ones too, because those would be people that would look at them, and that's doing your homework, right? Knowing a little bit going in. Just don't go and complain. If you want the advantages, do the work.
Yeah, and I hear in my short time showing, I've heard a lot of "Yeah, well, that judge doesn't really know. That judge doesn't really know," and it's like, but if they are approved from America, they took a test and showed that they have the knowledge on the breed. Like, they should at least be competent enough in the ring that you can be okay to know, like, they probably picked the right dog on that day, and that's okay. And if it wasn't yours, that's fine, and I have a tricolor uh, dog as well, and I've actually been on the table. I love tri. It's probably my favorite color. I also think um, I don't know. I just really like them. I just think they look prestigious.
Very
But yeah, and I've had my tri bitch on the table before and had a judge come up to me. A couple years ago, this would have been a disqualification. It's like, yep, I know, but it's not anymore. Not here. Maybe in a different. I think it is still is in Canada, but not here. And then you just hope, like, please judge me fairly because you had to bring that up to me that it was a disqualification a couple of years ago. And I had faith, like, we didn't win, but I don't. I had faith that the judge was making the right decision. I think as exhibitors, we need to step back a little bit and just have faith in the judges that they're making a good decision based on what they're seeing in the ring that day. And I think it's really easy to crap on judges, but you know, you see a lot of dogs in a day, and you have to be able to, again, like we talked about earlier, you have to be able to judge that dog to the standard versus the other dogs in the ring in the short amount of time that you have. It can't be easy.
It's got sometimes and everybody has a different process, and so like and especially when it's breeds you're super familiar with, it's like you just like it's very instinctual. It's like, oh, of course, this. But when you come to other breeds or other things that you're like, I'm applying for breeds now that I maybe didn't breed. I haven't shown. But I've seen them. I still have opinions of them and stuff. So I'm gonna have to work a little harder, look a little deeper to kind of know the things that I'm really wanting and stuff. Whereas like probably not gonna slip it by me on something else, but I will have to be a little more vigilant on that. And, it's 175 dogs a day. You know, that's a lot of dogs to look through there. So, yeah, we kind of got to cut them a little slack. And as long as they were good to you and are good to your dog, and if try them a time or two. And if they don't, if you don't see eye to eye, don't enter. It's easy.
Yeah, and you kind of already said that. It's like I keep a running Excel spreadsheet that has a tab for every dog that I have, and I put in there the date we show, where it's at, what they were awarded, who the judge was. So when I'm entering shows, I can look at the judging panel and I can say, "Oh, I've shown to this judge before. Great. What did they do for me? Or how did I perform with this judge? Oh crap, I've shown to this judge 5 times. I've never earned a point. Maybe I don't want to put that dog into that ring. Do I want to spend the $35 to do that? Probably not. So I think it's just being diligent as a handler, as a and I could probably talk about this all day, and we probably should wrap this episode up because it's gone on long enough. But I just want to end it with one just kind of question that you can probably have a pretty quick answer with. When judges do a diagonal down and back versus a straight across down and back, is there a reason behind that, or is it just personal preference? Are they seeing something different? Are they putting the dogs in a different position for a different reason? Or
So,
is it just like I just don't want to see them diagonal. I want to see them go out this way.
all right, so for me, especially I like to see the dogs go in the center of the ring because I don't want them to be distracted. Like, so if I have them go down alongside the fence, they might start to want to go to the left to anticipate the corner. Or there might be people sitting alongside the ring gate, and that might fluster them a little bit. So in the center of the ring, it's a little bit more of that bubble, that protected area. It's just you and the dog. It's gonna take it down there, bring it back. You know, and that's where, it should not be, you shouldn't be affected by outside, influences as far as like distracting your dog or making it go off. And like if I have a dog that's going down and back and it's like not liking that corner there, yeah, I might ask them, do you want to try it over here? And just, because you can have them go use any corner, you know, and if the dog prefers to go this side, I've done that. I've like gone, oh, you don't want to walk near the wall of death. Well, then we'll step over here. Let's just do it down back here. It doesn't matter where it's at. You can kind of read the room, look at the dogs and stuff, but generally speaking, the center, the diagonal in the center is a good, safe place with not much outside influences to try to make them go off, and they're not likely to anticipate the corner. I like to see a dog on the straight down and back, and you know, people like to switch hands and put them off in the right hand to keep them from sidewinding. Is it sidewinding because it's anticipating the corner and it's going to turn? Or is it sidewinding because the front is bad and the rear is overrunning it and it's turning it sideways? So when I see them change hands, a lot of times I go, oh, I better look really hard at that front because how bad is that front that it's having to sidewind? Is it a behavioral issue or a structural issue? Because I like to see a straighter down and back. I mean that's usually more indicative of a good front. But I think the big thing is, like when you're talking about your list of your judges, be honest. Be as honest about your dogs as you want the judges to be, and say, yeah, they didn't place my dog, but he was skinny that weekend. Oh, he had a loose stool. He didn't show well. Oh, that was the weekend I got there and I tried that new shampoo and I turned him purple. And, you know, and oh,
Don't
I
use
tried.
purple shampoo, please.
Oh, God, don't do it. Don't do it. It's
Oh my
not.
gosh.
Or I use that new fancy lead with all those big baubles on there, and I threw it over there and practically killed someone. I mean, all of that stuff. Be honest as to what you brought the judge for that weekend. So, what did you really have your A game? Was your dog 100%? And because if you were totally jonesing and you were in the zone and they just missed it, well, then they don't like your dog. Or maybe there was other things that were just so good. But if you think that you look around and go, oh, these weren't the best dogs, and we've beaten them before, and my dog really performed well, and I did well, and we had it all together, well, okay, then they just didn't care for your dog, But if you brought, it's like, they'll say, oh, why did you put up the dog? Well, did you see that coming back when you like was had the head down and you were kicking it and it was like a whole mess. So just be as honest about what you did, what you brought to be judged as you want the judges to be judging it.
Sportsmanship is such a huge part of the sport. Like the poor sports that can be in it and the excuses we can all make, like you said, be honest with yourself and with your dog. I mean, we took Breed this weekend. We heard a lot of negative feedback. We went into group ring. We didn't place. And, it was like, when he got out. It was the same judge too. It was the same judge that in group that judged our breed. And so it was naturally like, oh, we're probably gonna place. And you kind of get that feeling, that little pep in your step, and you get in the ring and you do it and you don't place. And it's like, was I sad? Yeah, but I had to look at myself and be like, my dog did not show good in the group ring. He was tired. He was exhausted. He wouldn't keep his tail up. I could get zero spunk out of him at all. I was trying. I was trying to get him to show some personality. It's like he was just done. He was tired. You're up another level. You're in the group ring, and yeah, I had to be honest. Like, we got to work on stamina if we want to compete in the group ring. We got to figure out how we're going to get this dog's stamina up to where he can show and breed and go to group, not just show and breed and go back to bed and be done for the day. He's got to be able to get back out and grow in the group ring. So that was something that we really had to be honest with ourselves with this
That's
last weekend.
You got once you know what's going on with your little teammate there. It's like, yeah, we're gonna. All right, we just showed him the breed. He's got to go back to the crate. We're gonna cover it up. We're gonna wake him up in 45 minutes. We're gonna feed him. We're gonna take him out to pee, give him some water, and then we're gonna wait till the group ring, and then we're gonna pull out our very favorite toy we've ever had, and all of that stuff, all those little tricks to get that last little bit of animation. But you just have to be honest. Like, obviously, the judge liked your dog enough to send it to the group. But if there were four, or there's only four placements in that group, and there's a lot of nice dogs there, so you're going to have to really bring an A plus plus game to because not only do you have to just beat your own people, you got to beat the world there. You got to beat them all, and so that's
You got to beat the best of
of every,
every toy breed
yep.
that of that day. You got to be the best representation of your breed out of the toy group to win that group. And I mean, and be honest, like, we weren't the best representation. We wouldn't have won breed ring again if that was a second show in that day. We would have never won breed ring just by, like, the dog was tired. He was done. And part of that was lack of me, the lack of on my part too. Like, I never won breed before. It was my first breed win. So naturally, the family's excited. We're excited. We're all giddy and everything. And probably didn't get the dog in his kennel to rest and think about that nearly as much. We were worried about pictures. We need pictures. We need this. We need this, all this. And the dog's getting all over the place and probably didn't get a nap. Like, I mean, it's learning lessons every time you walk in the ring. Be open minded to learning and what you can do better, and not so what everybody else didn't do or did do that stepped on your toes. Like, what can you do better next time? And I am so big on sportsmanship. Like, tell people good job, whether you like them or not, and they beat you or you don't think they should have beat you. You know what? You did good, because we're all here to try to improve this sport and to participate in this sport. And breed, yeah, it's a competition, but we're all trying to put out nice Japanese chin, and we're all trying to put out nice whatever breed you're in, and there's a respect for other people. At the end of the day, we all think we have the best Japanese chin or the best dog of our breed. That's what we think. But be honest with yourself. There's always room for improvement. There's not the perfect dog out there, and it's okay that other people might have a nicer head than yours, or a nicer body than yours, or a nicer coat. Like, it happens. Uh, I came up with another question, so I'm gonna extend this a little bit longer because it goes really good into judging. Now, we had talked earlier about show the judge what you want to see and try to hide faults. So if my dog, my Japanese chin, say my Japanese chin, let's just for argument, I'm just gonna make some random stuff up. One of the biggest ones you're gonna see is what side the dog carries his tail on naturally. They don't. The standard doesn't say they have to carry it on on their left side, the judge's side. It doesn't say anything about what side the tail carries on. Seems like most of the time you're pretty lucky if they'll carry it on the left side because they like to be little butts, and carry it on the right side because, of course, you want it to be on the left side for the judge.
Sure.
So if I'm the handler, my dog carries his tail on the right side all the time, and I'm gonna stack him backwards so his tail's flipped over towards the judge. As a judge, when you see things like that, like, everybody's lined up a certain way, the normal way, with the left side facing the judge, but there's this one dog that's got his right side. Are you just like, come on, what are you hiding? I want to go look at this dog closer because like, I can tell you're hiding something because you stacked your dog backwards.
Well, okay. So I think you have to give the judges enough credit to see. Like what I try to do is, like, when I'm gonna go ahead and uh they're going to move. They're going to want to shake, and the tail's going to end up on the side they want to put it on. And sometimes, if you're lucky, when you come off the table, you can pull the tail onto the other side and hold it with your hand down as you set them down and just like don't shake, don't shake, don't shake. And you start walking before they get a chance to shake, and they'll leave it on the judge's side, and you can do your pattern with it down and back. That's awesome if it works. Sometimes if they get enough hair length to it, you can flip it over to one side. That's nice if it'll happen. Or maybe you can even split the hair on the tail, and even though the point of the tail is going to one side, you can have hair going into the other side. That'll work. All of those things to make the illusion of the symmetrical, the balance of, but it's at the end of the day, it's not that almighty important. It's just part of the thing. I would say that, you know, I myself think that you should make showing your dog about the dog. And if you start drawing attention to yourself, that is not, I see it happen. I see people when they do this, the death stare at you, and they're trying to, whatever I don't know if that really works with people. But, honestly, I prefer they just stack them all together, and if I want to see that dog's tail on the other side, I'll step it to the other side and take a look at it. If it, that's not gonna, it's not gonna wow me one way or another. Like, I get party color marked dogs all the time, and that's why when we were having them do the down and back, and I had the tape out where they had it stop, I walked around because I wanted to see the color on both sides, you know, and I do that on anything that's got party color markings because I want to see what the top line looks on both sides. I want to see how it looks, either way. And I can remember that. I can look at that and see that. It's not gonna. I think the big thing is you don't want to be a spectacle as far as that, and you don't want to I mean, sure people do it, and like if your dog has better markings on one side than the other, well, when you're standing in line relaxing, flip them around so when they glance back there, they look and see how nice that looks out there the whole time. You can do that the whole time, right? But when you're doing your last thing and you're all lined up, for me, I would rather they just all stack. Like, we have to judge them consistently, kind of try to show them a little consistently. It's not going, you have one here, one there, one turned here. That's a little harder. And the dog that's behind you is now looking your dog in the eye. And that's not good. That can sometimes be a problem. You have another dog there, and it's like, I try not to. I try and want each dog to be evaluated by itself and to have its own little in the bubble, you know. And I don't want one other dog giving stink eye to another dog, or like one other exhibitor is saying, "Oh, well, they flipped their dog around and messed my dog stack up," that kind of thing. Show your dog to the best advantage, but don't do it at the expense of somebody else's dog. That kind of falls under the sportsmanship thing. Do your very, very best job, but don't do it at the expense of someone else. And like in that way, whoever wins, you walk away, you can just blame the judge. They were stupid, crooked, senile, whatever, all the above. And that where it's can, or maybe they just like that one better. Give them that. But that's what I'm saying. Kind of get into your dog, watch your dog, have your friend video your dog, watch that dog on the video. That's where those live feeds, like what we just did at the National, so beneficial. Watch those dogs. Watch how those people showed those dogs. And you think to yourself, well, they did that. That looks really good. I like that. Oh, I don't want to do that. That's not a good look. All of those things you can kind of see, learn, and make choices of, yes, I'm going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. It's good information. It's an open book test.
Yeah, and I mean, this whole thing, hopefully everybody sticks around to the end and listens to it because this has been a knowledge-rich podcast, probably one of the better ones that we've done as far as what you can take away about it and the knowledge that you get on it. Um, I think that will wrap up this episode. If anybody's got any questions, again, we do the listener questions, so you can on Buzzsprout on our website. You can text us a question. You can also Facebook us. And when I say us, I mean me, because if you Facebook Dale and ask him a question, he's probably going to tell you, "Hey, send it to Tyson," because I'll make a list and then I'll ask Dale, and he's got enough on his plate. So really, send me, and you can do that via the Tack Box Podcast Facebook page. I monitor that. That's me in there. You can send me a personal message. I don't care. You can send an email to the tackboxpodcast@gmail.com. Any way to get a hold of me, that's one of those ways. So send us your questions. We'll do a listener episode once a month. And we appreciate you. Make sure that you are subscribing to our YouTube channel so you can see all our hand gestures. And, I like to just see what outfit Dale's going to wear. It's just kind of fun.
Buffalo, South Dakota bison. There we go.
Yeah, see, he's got the buffalo on today, and today we both wore hats. So you
That's
gotta
right.
be able to see Dale outside of his suit when he's judging, and see us in our real world here. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps us out the most. But anywhere you get your podcasts, you can subscribe to and join our Facebook group. Any closing comments, Dale?
Hey, it was great. We had a great time at the Nationals. Thank you so much for doing the video work and stuff. That was awesome. Enjoyed and getting a chance to hang out with you and your daughter, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast, everybody. We will talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye now.